Hey everyone, happy paddling. Today we have a little bit of rain here in Central Oregon, and I wanted to just quickly answer a question that I've been getting a lot of, which is how to size a canoe paddle. When sitting in a canoe, we can't measure our whole body length. We're actually measuring our torso. Because when we're standing, we'll measure our whole height, but in a canoe, of course, our legs aren't as much of the equation. The end goal that we're trying to achieve is to get our top hand in a position of power. If we go too high, we just don't have the leverage over the stroke or the ability to drive our top arm down. And if we go too low, we have this short little kind of blender stroke that is almost too short to be effective. So we're trying to find the sweet spot. The way to do that is to measure our torso length. We find something to sit on here, and we grab a canoe paddle and we flip it upside down. And for a straight shaft paddle, the general rule is that we want to be at about where your hairline is, or where your hairline was. Of course, personal preference is going to weigh in on all of this, and if you talk to longtime paddlers, everybody kind of has their own input, but these are the general guidelines. So I think I'm holding right here a 56-inch paddle as I sit up straight. This is right about at my hairline, and so 56 inches is pretty good for me. But I happen to know that oftentimes when I'm in like a solo canoe, I am often kneeling. And one thing that happens when you kneel, at least I have found, is that actually your kind of torso elongates. So when I was sitting, I'm kind of a little bit bent over, but when I kneel, my torso just kind of elongates, and I find that I actually like a little bit longer, mainly so I can achieve that goal of having that hand kind of around the bridge of my nose right here with a straight shaft. That allows me to get the reach and get a nice power phase, still have enough reach back here for correctional strokes, but not so high that I'm fatiguing my shoulder with every stroke. So for myself in a straight shaft paddle, I like between a 56 and a 58 inch, but it does matter where my seat height is. If I'm in one of my solo canoes called the Magic, where I'm sitting very low in the boat, I actually like a little bit shorter paddle. If I'm in a boat that I might have my seat elevated higher, I like a little more length. If I know that I'm going to be kneeling a lot, I personally like a little more length. When we go to a bench shaft paddle, right here in my stroke now, my paddle is still vertical. So the bench shaft stroke allows us to kind of have a tighter in power phase. Whereas with the straight, I'm kind of here to about there. With the bench shaft, I actually can be in, because of that bend, means my paddle's vertical right here in the water, my stroke can actually be in a little bit tighter, and that allows me to have a shorter paddle length. The general rule of thumb is about 4 inches shorter than the straight shaft you would use, with all the same considerations that we talked about just a second ago. Set the handle between my legs, sit nice and straight up, and right where that blade starts should be right actually about the bridge of my nose, so about 4 inches shorter. So hairline, and I'm going to say that's right about here, and we're right at about the bridge, and this happens to be a 52-inch paddle, which is usually what I prefer. And then I also have a race canoe that's really narrow, and I actually sit up pretty high in it, but I'm doing a lot of fast stroke, high cadence, and sometimes I actually like a little shorter. You also want to certainly factor in the boat and kind of personal preference along the way. You know, people also ask, should I have a straight shaft or should I have a bench shaft paddle? My answer is yes. I've found that I just really like to have both. Sometimes I want more of a high cadence sit and switch style paddling, and a bench shaft paddle really lends itself to that. Sometimes I want to use kind of the art of the path of the paddle, more correctional strokes, and oftentimes a straight shaft paddle is better for that, but you can certainly do both types of strokes with either paddle. So I hope that helped you a little bit, learn how to size a paddle appropriately, and the next video series will get into kind of some of the nuances of what to look for when choosing a canoe paddle. Happy paddling!